The doctor came in and said, we can go ahead and induce you and go ahead and take her. There's such a huge high risk of infection. It could kill you in a matter of a few days. You know, it is an option just to go ahead and take the baby. And we immediately stopped him and said, that's not an option for us.
I may lose my daughter. And we as a family had learned that no matter what happens, we know that the Lord has the best for us. And while that's easy to say sometimes, living an experience that makes it hard, sometimes it's really hard to believe that.
I've been at Clemson for a couple of years, and I met this guy named Brandon, and I was really attracted to him, but I thought that he didn't look or seem like this picture that I had in my mind of who I would marry. I thought that I liked him too much, and God wouldn't want me to like him that much or something ridiculous.
I spent the summer away at a camp working, and I didn't have a lot of phone time, so I spent time writing letters back and forth and kind of building a relationship through writing, which was really cool.
Brandon started showing interest in me, and I made him work for it. I made him prove himself.
In a more of a courtship pursuing on my end than an actual just jump into dating relationship. She made me wait for it, which was good, I think, for me, to something I wanted and something that I felt was important, you know, enough to pursue after.
I knew as we served together alongside each other on the mission field in Brazil, that's when I knew that I wanted to marry him. And so when he asked me to marry him several months later, I obviously knew what my answer would be, and I was looking forward to doing ministry and doing life and having children with him.
So we've been married for 6 years now. It's been a great 6 years.
We really enjoyed being married. It was a lot more than I ever imagined. It was almost too good to be true. So several years into our marriage, when the Lord was, you know, kind of started prompting me, maybe it's time to get pregnant, I was in the middle of grad school and my life was crazy, and I'm like, Lord, are you sure it's right now? Because that doesn't fit my plan. And he just kindly said, daughter, if you obey me, you know, you won't regret it. And so, you know, we got pregnant within a month, and he just blessed that pregnancy, and our son has been wonderful. He's 2 now. His name's Tillman, and he has just made our life even better. I think I had the false idea that he would somehow slow our life down, or somehow we couldn't have as much fun, but it's been even better with him and our family.
So beginning of this year, 2014, we got pregnant with our second child in February. Completely different pregnancy than the first pregnancy. Instead of morning sickness, it was all-day sickness, 24/7. Haley woke up sick, went to bed sick, you know, sat on the couch, you know, and just kind of functioned and maintained, except when she was at work. And just pushing through because she had to.
You know, I was practicing medicine, so I would see a patient, then I would lay my head down or throw up in between patients, and then I'd wipe my mouth and go see the next patient. It was really difficult, and then come home and take care of a 2-year-old. But one day we were planning Tillman's 2nd birthday. I started having back pain that night. I'm like, well, maybe I just slept on my back wrong. I don't really think it's anything. And it wasn't going away. I tried taking some Tylenol. It didn't do anything. I tried getting in the tub, and I can handle a lot of pain.
And she looked at me and she said, something's wrong. You know, I don't feel right. Something's different. This isn't normal. Knowing how we had already spent the first trimester, I was very quick and keen to listen to her, obviously, she knowing her body and the feelings that she knew, and having already had 1 child, knowing that something's different and it feeling different than typical back pain. And so I said, well, let's go to the hospital and just have it checked. Checked in at triage and went to a room waiting for the resident to come in and see her.
You know, they're like, oh, you're 22 weeks, it's nothing, you're just having a little muscular pain. You know, they did a few things, and they basically wrote us off.
Haley kept trying to tell him, you know, like, I've been there, I've done that, I know what that feels like, this is different, something's weird, something's off. Having nothing else besides her feeling to go off of, they couldn't really keep us.
Well, I stood up to go, and I looked on the bed, and there was fluid everywhere, and my heart dropped, because being in the medical field, I knew what that meant.
And so, obviously, we start freaking out. She gets back in the bed, I call the nurse, you know, immediately. Show them, you know, the fluid in the bed. So then they start taking it a little more seriously. Obviously, they're like, okay, and we could tell in the nurse's face that this was probably her water had broken. Things start happening a lot faster. Nurses and doctors are kind of rushing around. I
was still hoping for the best. Brandon was hoping for the best, and when they confirmed that my water had broken, we just started sobbing.
For a baby that we had prayed for and wanting to have so bad to now be in jeopardy because of an unknown reason that my wife's water had broken, we were devastated. And like I said, the doctors had started preparing us for the worst. 22 weeks, doctors don't consider the baby viable. And so there's nothing that they or we could do.
Probably 3.5 years, I've probably had over 100 patients that have had their water broken. I mean, normally when it's before 24 weeks, they don't even make it to 24 weeks.
They kept us for 48 hours. Typically what happens is Haley would have either gone into labor, because water breaking is the start of your body starting labor, or a lot of times premature rupture is caused by an infection of some sort, and so they make sure that infection doesn't ascend into Haley. So for 48 hours living in the hospital, literally begging God to give us the daughter that we knew he had and that we were in the process of raising and growing already.
They said, well, you've made it 48 hours. Now you're gonna go home from 22 weeks to 24 weeks because if she comes before 24 weeks, she wouldn't make it anyways. Just wait and see what happens. But 80% of women will go into labor before then. And so we came home and it was horrible. I don't know that I slept any of those 2 weeks. I read the Bible and listened to worship music almost for 2 weeks straight and just soak up all the time I could with my family, knowing that if I somehow did make it and beat the odds, that I was going to be living in the hospital. So when we made it to 24 weeks, that was another mile marker. And we moved into the hospital.
And when I say move in, I literally mean move in. Haley's the patient. She's got her room, moved in for real. And we had decided during that 2-week period at home that we were going to do this as a family, that I would live there, that I would move in, that Tillman, our 2-year-old, would live there as well, that we would spend every night there, and that we were going to do this as a family because we felt that that was very important.
They said it's basically a count up at this point. Every day is a few less days in the NICU for her. If she does come at 24 weeks or 25 or 26, she may not still make it. Their goal was 34 weeks. They said even if she makes it to then, you may lose her even then because we don't know how far along her lungs will be developed because your water broke right in the middle of crucial lung development. But I didn't think about those things very much. I just tried to, again, remember what God had promised me, and so I put scripture all up in the room and I just read those. I would text a friend if I got discouraged. And we had so much support and so much love during those few weeks. And, my husband and my 2-year-old were just precious to me. And
it was a day-to-day battle. We had good days where every time the doctors checked, Elise looked good, but there was little to no fluid. We'd have an ultrasound, the fluid would be back up, the next week. And so it was very much a roller coaster ride. My typical day looked like getting up at the hospital at 6:15, going to work, working a 10-hour day, come home, drop off dirty laundry and dirty dishes, pick up food people had dropped off and clean clothes for the next day, get back to the hospital at 6:15, 6:30 at night, have dinner in our little tiny hospital room as a family, cuddle, relax, hang out, play, go to bed and do it all again.
I was really lonely because there were a lot of hours that I was just in the bed, and I'm very independent, and I don't even enjoy naps really. I don't really enjoy resting. I enjoy being out and doing things. So the lessons that I learned during that process were astronomical, because I said to God, I was like, I can be miserable and make everyone miserable around me, or I can make the best of this and make a difference in the people's lives who come in this room.
The thing that really sticks out to me the most is that, some days I would come in and I would have her, and I may have like 3, 4 other patients. Sometimes I would go get us some coffee downstairs, and I'd just get a little break, and I would go to her room and I'd kind of sit down on the couch and we kind of catch up on things, and we would just kind of talk, just like friends. And I didn't do that with any other patients. I've never done that with any other patients, but she was more like a friend and a sister to me.
Tillman was the life of the party on the 6th floor at the hospital. He became a celebrity. All the nurses and doctors wanted to be in the room and spend time with us and him. And I believe that wasn't only because of him. I think, I truly feel that the presence of the Lord was in that room during those 8 weeks, and that for a lot of people that's something that they don't experience. And so there was something different about our hospital room when they walked in, and so they felt that, and it was a draw for them. The goal was 10 weeks. We wanted to live in the hospital for 10 weeks. Elise would be 34 weeks old, and that's when they would induce labor for her to be born, because at that point the risks no longer outweighed the benefits of her staying in utero. On Sunday at 8 weeks, Haley woke up, had been feeling bad from the Saturday before, woke up Sunday and just looked miserable. Looked like she had the flu. Just completely different than she had been the entire 8 weeks. Looked clammy, looked pale, looked lethargic. And she just kept telling me, I don't feel good, I don't feel good. So Monday morning, the doctor and nurse came in. They're like, you definitely look different. We think that you're probably getting an infection. So today's the day. And so on September 8th, after 8 weeks of in the hospital, we prepped and went down to the OR for a planned C-section. Our prayer was, that she'd come out screaming, but with having little to no fluid for the 10 weeks after water rupture, one of the biggest developmental issues would be her lungs. Elise's lung development would be really far behind, and so our prayer was, please let her scream when she comes out. Please let her scream.
I remember being scared because I didn't know what she would be like when she was born. We had asked that she would be crying, and we asked that the Lord would walk with us each step of the way. And when they rolled me into the OR, the surgical tech came up and she wrapped a warm blanket around me and she said, it's gonna be okay. And then I just remember laying there and looking up at the lights and just being hyper aware of the situation. And when they first pulled Elise out, there was nothing. She didn't utter anything initially. And I wanted to panic, but I said, Lord, send your angels of healing down. Like, I pray that she starts crying. And then she started screaming, and Brandon and I just started weeping.
And to hear her lungs, to work, and to hear her crying was such a relief at that point. Nothing else really mattered. We'll figure everything else out in the future. She's fine, she's alive, and she's breathing, and she's doing well.
And we got one little peek at her, and then they rushed her over to the NICU. It was scary seeing her attached to so many wires, and it was scary as a nurse not watching the monitors and knowing what they meant, just like being there in the moment and being her mom. She was doing pretty well initially, and then that night the neonatologist walked over to our room and he said, I'm not sure she's gonna make it. She's gone downhill really quickly and she's on the highest settings on the life support, and I just felt like I needed to tell you that in person. And still in that moment, I didn't lose hope. I still didn't lose faith. I just started texting people and got on Facebook and said, this is what I need you to pray for. She started getting better, and within a day and a half, she was off life support. And then they went down to CPAP helping her breathe, and they went down to just oxygen in her nose. It was, again, everything we prayed and asked God for, He gave to us.
Then the next test is the car seat test, where they place her in her car seat and test her oxygen levels to make sure that she doesn't need oxygen in transport, and passed it like she had never had lung issues. So Saturday morning, we got up and we prepared to come home. There's lots of joy, obviously. It was like, finally I'm out of this place. I never want to see this hospital again. I don't ever want to be back here, but definitely overwhelming joy to finally come home. We literally spent the next 3 days just sitting on the couch as a family of 4, finally home together for the first time. I
just lost it. I'd stayed strong for so long, but we finally had made it, and I just cried and cried and cried with thankfulness. Well, you hear about miracles, but I'd given birth to one.
It's surreal to look over and see that little girl that we did long for so long, that we prayed for, and that we, in essence, battled for and fought for.
It's really hard to believe, even though we had faith through the whole journey, but to have her here in my arms and to still see little miracles every day, it's just like, God, you're so good. Mm-hmm. You're so, so good, and you're real, and that you love us so much. And she's proof. I knew it. I always have known it. But, we are different people than we were 6 months ago, because God has shown Himself so real to us.